or not, but you feel, as a graduate, you're not having the best of the career you've laid your hand into. We want you to come on the 9th for a free introduction to facility management course. We're going to introduce you to FM. We're going to give you, the opportunities that you can get. And we're going to talk about how the FM diploma is going to change the course of your career if you do come in. So we're looking forward to that as well. And on the 16th of December, Saturday, 16th of December, it's a big day for Max-Migold and all of our alumni and our, students, current students, and those graduating, and all those who have had any kind of consideration of facility management as a career. Come to the Faculty of Social Sciences theater, the new theater, where we're going to be having our annual graduation ceremony. We have over 100 people, donning the graduation sashes on the 16th. There's going to be a lot of celebration. There'll be a lot of opportunity to showcase what the FM diploma does for people and their careers. And we ask you not to miss it. If you've thought about FM as a career, if you've worked in FM before, if you are working in FM or anywhere in the built environment right now, architects, engineers, surveyors, whatever field they are in, request an opportunity to get an invitation, because an invite-only event. Request an opportunity to get a link so you can signal your interest to get invited to that event. It's going to be a big deal. It's actually our biggest event for the year, and we hope that you will be able to, make it to the venue at that day. But register first and receive your invites for that day. All right, thank you so much. So today we are looking at creative problem solving. So if I ask the question, have you ever had a problem? Have you ever had to solve a problem? I'm sure everyone will put their hand up. Have you ever been overwhelmed with a problem? Most people have been overwhelmed at one time or the other with a problem. Have you ever solved the problem? Most of us will also have had a situation where we have been able to solve a problem. How did you solve the problem? Can you still remember the path you took? Can you remember the steps you took? Was it flick or some kind of, luck that got you out of the jam? Or did you follow a method? Did you use a process? Okay. No problem can withstand the assault of sustained thinking. And in this case, not worrying, because thinking comes with analysis, comes with data, comes with a structure, comes with a pattern that leads you to a solution. But if you're thinking about the problem and it's all about worrying about the implication or the impact of that negative situation, then you are not part of the solution. You are just creating distressful and depressive situation for yourself. Okay, so we're going to look at what psychologists and business people have put together over the years to deal with issues, large and small, and we see how we can adapt them for our own use. All right, so we want to understand what problems are, what questions to ask. If you don't know what problem you have, you are not able to picture it, you're not able to dissect it. No matter what solution you take, no matter what path you take, remember the Alice in the Wonderland story. Alice asking the cats, I'm at a junction, a crossroad, where do I take? And the response was, where are you going to? If you know your destination, it will matter whether you take right or left. But if you don't already know your destination, it doesn't really matter. Just take any one and move on, because you don't know your destination. So the same thing with creative problem solving. If you don't understand your problem, you don't know your destination. So it doesn't matter what solution you put forward. Some people are creating solutions for problems that don't already exist, while others are creating problems waiting for solutions. But in this case, we're trying to get you to cross every bridge as you come across them in terms of the problems that you encounter, but do it with a pattern, with a way to solve it. And that way is what we're looking at today. So one of the basic things is, how would you get through? How would you understand your problem? How would you dissect the options you have? So key questions to ask. If there's an issue, what are the questions you're going to ask? We're going to show you how to ask those questions. And then evaluate potential solutions. Sometimes we are kind of stereotyped, we have a way of doing things. We have a programming, our system. We thought about culture and environment, our religion, our way of life. So many influences mold us to become stereotyped, so that when we encounter issues, we often have a particular way of doing it, of attacking it. Whether it provides the right solution or not, whether it moves us forward or not, sometimes we're actually progressing by the way we approach issues. And yet we can't help ourselves because we don't know a better way, okay? One of the things you're going to be learning in this section is that you have to consider options. You have to consider alternatives. You have to be able to get yourself out of the situation and ask yourself, how many possible options can there be, right? How can I approach this from multiple angles? And then what are the pros and cons? What are the features or elements of each of these options? What are the risks, related to each of these options? Can I quantify and evaluate those risks? I have to find a way to find a bottom line with the option. And if you ask me, I'll say before you deal with any problems, know that you must go through at least 3 potential solutions. That's my own rule of thumb. You might have your own rule of thumb, but if you go through 3 potential solutions and you sift through them and you come to the right one and you act, in more cases than not, you'll be successful at resolving that issue. And then once you know the path you're going to take, you need to create tasks and resources. You need to find the steps that you need to take. So now that you've narrowed it down, you need to know exactly what you're going to do to move it forward. Okay. Every problem has in it the seeds of its own solution. If you don't have any problems, you don't get any seeds. Norman Vincent Pierre. To begin, let's look at the creative problem solving process. We want to look at problem. What is a problem? The situation that lend themselves to the creative problem solving process. And then we introduce the concept of solving problems using a creative process. Okay, so what's the problem? You can relate with this one. When you have a challenge, say, oh, there's a problem. So that could be in form of a hurdle, could be in form of a resistance, could be in form of a something not going your way as you expected it. Problems can also be opportunities. You're trying to take advantage of an opportunity, and you're asking yourself, how can I tap into this? How can I benefit from this? How can I use this opportunity? You have to solve the problem so you know how, because that problem solving approach takes you to the point where you know how, and then you can all push. All right. An undesired situation, something can happen that this is completely not what you thought it to be. This is not something you desire. It's negative. This is not the path you laid out or thought you laid out for yourself. Some people say, oh, I'm not cut out for this. So some negative language and technologies, help you move you away from the solution, move you deeper into the problem, right? It's an undesired situation. What am I going to do about it? That's the kind of question you're looking at here, right? And not what caused it, who made it, and how am I going to run the blame up on people? No. Sometimes it's just uncertainty. There could be anxiety related to uncertainty. There could be worrying. I can't completely wipe away the fact that sometimes we worry before we start getting into problem solving. The issue is, will you dwell in the worry, or will you get yourself back into the path of problem solving, right? And then sometimes it's just about trying to make a choice or a decision and wondering what options you might have, what way you might want to approach something. Okay, so that doubt about a decision you thought you were about to make or you've already made, whether it's the right one, can be a problem in itself. Okay, so these five, situations can be what we call a problem. Okay, so when we say solve a problem, many people just know that sometimes from instinct we just solve the problem. It just happens that you can even be spontaneous. Something can just happen and boom, in a flash, you fix the issue, right? But if you were asked how you did it, can you reproduce the path you took? Sometimes we become so used to the way we deal with issues that we don't reprocess it. We don't know whether there's a structure around it. We don't know whether there's something of luck around it. We don't know exactly how it happens. But sometimes we just act intuitively and we act right. Sometimes we act intuitively and we act wrong. We make mistakes. We regret some actions. We try to recall and redeem, right? But what we are calling creative problem solving is when we have a structured approach. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to call a committee, set up a notepad and start, brainstorming and writing stuff. It doesn't necessarily follow. It's a thinking pattern. So if you do write down your thoughts so you can visualize, sometimes verbalize it in discussions and exchanges, is part of the structured approach. You're following a pattern that you have created. So that pattern becomes a template in your mind. All right, it becomes a template in your mind. So when something happens, instead of fretting and projecting or going into any of those negative emotions, you call that template out and you start feeding it with the various entries that helps you approach the issue. Because the first thing is, what exactly is the issue? You could just have a disagreement with someone over a work-related task, for example, an approach to getting something done, or you could have gone in for an interview or a sales pitch, and you just came back with a rejection, and you're trying to figure out what exactly just happened. Instead of worrying, get into the structured approach. Creative problem solving also involves innovative solutions, right? Moving away from your comfort zones to find other ways to approach the issue. Innovation is about, coming up with new, previously, unthought of ideas, in approaching something you are dealing with. Okay, so it doesn't necessarily have to be a spark of genius from someone else. It can come from you, but it's innovation for you or innovative for you if you never gave yourself that pattern of thinking before. But this time, something new, you decided to explore something new. And that idea can come from, talking with someone else, reading some material, searching on the internet, just about, it could be environmental. It could also be you trying to create a new pattern of thinking within yourself, okay? The goal of creative problem solving is to improve a situation. Solve a problem means to move away from an undesired situation into a desired situation. It's very important that we understand that distinction. So what are the steps for creative problem solving? What are the processes? We said you have to understand the problem. And to understand the problem, you need to gather information about it. There are many questions that need to be asked. If you know the right questions, if you know who to ask the right questions, you'll be able to gather information about the problem. It is after you've gathered enough information about the problem, you can now create what the problem is. Sometimes people have issues, they have problems, they really can't define what their problem is. Okay, you can't begin to solve a problem that you don't understand. I've had situations where I've had to talk with people about, somebody comes to me, oh, I have this job offers, 2 job offers. I don't know which one to accept. I'm confused. Of course, that's doubt, right? So that's the problem. And I'm trying to find a way to solve it. I basically just sit them down and say, okay, fine. Let's go through a few questions. We ask this question and that question and that question and ask that question. And by the time we are done, I ask the person, which one are you going to choose out of these 2 options right now? right? It almost becomes a no-brainer. It's almost as if it's almost as if you just came upon the solution, you know, whereas there was a pattern, there were questions, you know, that you asked to get to where you are. And then when you have defined the problem, you now create possible solutions. There are many ways to act on every part, on every situation you find yourself. So list as many as possible, and then narrow down that list to a workable number using the an exclusion mechanism. You pick up the most probable, the most advantageous, and then you remove the least probable and the most risky. You keep eliminating using that risk analysis until you come to a few like 3. Suppose I have 5 options. If they have time to walk through all of those options, because at the end of the day, you want to pick a solution that can drive you towards your the best outcome for yourself, right? So you analyze all of those solutions, select the best one, and then based on the best option that you have picked, you go to your next course of action. And your next course of action is generating a list of tasks. If you use project management parlance, you say create a work breakdown structure, where you break down the objective, break that down into a series of tasks and work packages to be able to move your solutions to execution. Okay. All right. So information gathering. You want to gather information before you'll be able to solve any problem. If you don't have the information, you can't deal with the issue. Okay. Sometimes you have access to the information. You're seeing it. But it is how you interpret the information you are seeing that can become the reasoning behind what you get out of it in terms of solution. Okay, you have an information, and you have to make a decision whether that information is facts, whether it's an assumption, whether it's a concept, an opinion, a procedure, or a process. Because if you're able to distinguish between these, especially the first two, fact and assumption, a fact is a generally accepted concept. When something is being used over the years and has been checked and has been producing the right outcomes or results, it becomes generally accepted as facts. Okay, assumptions can be facts, but they are often skewed by our own makeup and our own personal programming. So our biases can now, turn a fact into an assumption, because additional information, additional background information that we use as lenses with which we look at a fact can make those facts become assumptions. Okay. Concepts are ideas, may not be generally accepted, but they are ideas that can be applied to situations. Opinions also serve the same purpose, but they are often individual. Opinions are just like assumptions. Individuals have to come up with, their own personal bias, of a concept to form an opinion. All right. A procedure is how things are done, and that can be different from individual to individual, corporate, company to company. Procedures and processes are set up to deal with issues, and sometimes you are bound by contractual obligation to work with certain procedures and process. And it doesn't have to do anything with your own opinion or any assumptions that you might be having, or anything else. It could even be contrary to generally held fact or accepted fact, but that's what the organization or person you are working with has said should be the situation. So how do you identify the questions you should be asking? There are 6 W words for questioning. I like talking about why first. Why does the issue matter? Why is this issue important? Why are we talking about it? Why is it a problem? Why am I trying to solve it? It has a way of giving you a superior way of thinking about a matter, if you can answer why. Because if you answer why, you often get to that go, no go decision point. Sometimes you're worrying so much about something that by the time you ask yourself why and do an analysis of that answer to yourself, you realize that there's no need to even go on with it. It's a useless situation. I shouldn't even be pushing it, right? And that can be enough reason to just abandon it in the first place. Okay, so we ask why first, so that we can understand from a very high level what we are trying to do with. And then who is talking about the parties involved, stakeholders. So you can ask, who is it going to affect, who is it already affecting, who is acting on what, and so on. You just keep asking who, because the human element to every problem is actually the most complex. So this is something that you need to really deal with, asking questions around who, and then what. Okay, you begin to dissect the issue, right? Because you've answered why, what becomes easy? What becomes easy? Okay, because that's what brought you into this situation in the first place. And then you now deal with when there are time frames, there are schedules, there are deadlines, there are milestones, there are every time constraints when you're trying to solve an issue gives you the question when. And then where? Situate this geographically, where, look at all the stakeholders, look at what, look at why, and where become also easy, right? Some things need to be done and done within certain geographical boundaries. And then which, so you're dealing with issues. How does this issue relate with other issues? How do the questions you're asking about this particular what affecting another what from another issue? How are things related? So asking many questions are ways to get over problems, to get over issues and resolve them. All right. So gathering information you can gather through interviews. You meet with people, have discussions, ask questions. So these interviews will have to be you identifying stakeholders, going to meet each of the stakeholders and ask questions that are pertinent to that individual, questions that will provide the kind of answer that person will have towards helping you gather the information you need. And then statistics. Some statistics may not necessarily be related to the issue you're trying to solve. There may be statistics that can help you form opinions. There can be statistics that can help you generate facts, that can help you create facts, so that you can, because if you're trying to get how important something is, or getting information on how frequently it happens to others, for example, and how often this scenario or situation affects people negatively or positively, probabilistic information, benchmark information, ranges of impacts, for example. You can use statistics from other occurrences, other situations to add flesh to the information you are gathering, because they help you form opinions, they help you take a position on criticality and priority. But again, you also need statistics on the scenario you are dealing with. If something happened, how much, how deep, how long, so many of those questions can help you gather statistical information. You can do questionnaires, send people out surveys. They fill the questionnaire. The difference between a questionnaire and an interview is that in an interview, you're there with the person, whether virtually or physically, face-to-face, gathering information, or you're taking your own notes or using certain other means of tabulating feedback. But questionnaires are often with you not there. You create a template, send out to the person, and then the person can fill that and return to you. Sometimes you can gather information from observations, just observe how something is happening. I'm trying to change the layout of my office because I think people are not working very well. There's so much news and there's so much disturbance. How do I, rejig this sitting arrangement to see what improvements I can bring to productivity? I want people to do better. I want people to enjoy their job, but right now the way we are sitting is not making us do that. I've established, using some way of thinking the problem, and I want to really, really put that problem in context. Observing how people work, just hanging around them, how many times people get up from their seats, for example, how often they interact with certain people in the same space, and there's so many things, how often they pick calls on the phone, how many times they go for meetings in a day, in a week, and so on. Those observations would add to the information I'm gathering about the current situation, because every problem you're trying to solve is moving you from a current situation to a future state. There's a gap. There's an automatic gap analysis, even if you don't call it gap analysis, right? This is where we are. We know where we want to be, and that gap becomes the problem because we want to close that gap. We want to move from where we are to where we want to be. Where we are now automatically is an undesirable situation or circumstance that we're in, even though we've been there for some time or forever. But now we just realize that we need to move. It becomes a problem that we need to solve, right? So, but you can't move, you can't solve it in a creative way using the tools and methods we're talking about in this session if you don't spend time gathering information about that situation. You must have certain metrics that you display that tells how that situation is, okay? So the next step in the critical problem solving process is to identify the problem. Let's look at how problem solvers clarify or define problems. Where is the problem originating from? Present state and desired state, the gap analysis I just mentioned, you do that. And these are simple notes. Take a note. This present state, describe it using bullet points. Desired state, this is what it will look like. Paint a picture of it using, bullet points. Stating and restating the problem, you have to prove what you have said is the problem again and again, because that problem is the gap. You have to understand all dimensions of that gap as part of your analyzing the problem, because if you don't, whatever solution you are trying to bring may not necessarily give you the results, okay? Then you move on to clarify the situation. This involves, first, ensuring that you understand the position of all stakeholders that the situation or the negative, undesired situation is affecting. Don't base it purely on your own opinion or your perception of what someone else thinks. You have to get that information from that individual. You have to check whether you have certain biases that have affected how the facts of the matter have been analyzed by you. This is the hardest part. Many of us can't tell when our own biases, our own stereotypes are the ones standing in our way of seeing things clearly and objectively. So we may find it difficult to clarify the situation. Challenge assumptions. So many times we just assume, and then we add those assumptions, whether subtly or consciously. We just work based on those assumptions without contesting the assumptions. This is the biggest challenge we have with creative problem solving. And one of the biggest culprits is our stereotypical way of assessing each other. Somebody's behavior in the past leads me to believe that he's likely to do this, right? Now, I've put that as an assumption in my mind. When analyzing a problem, something that just happened now, that assumption stays in my head and begins to work inside my own analysis of the situation. I almost concede, even if I don't, do it consciously. It is seen in me, in my demeanor, in my, in my posture, in the tone of my language and everything I do, that I've already put that person under the bus on this matter because of something I know he probably did in the past or repeatedly, or sometimes it's even worse when we bring in religious, ethnic, and all, tribal and other sentiments into this and say people of his type, people from his place. This is the likely things they do. That can be a big issue. Big issue. Such that you'll be seeing evidence, you'll be seeing facts, but you are now skewed, completely skewed. And it's even worse when these assumptions are about us. We don't even see it. You don't even know. For example, people will talk so loud and not even know they are talking loud. Other people around them will say, oh, you are shouting. I have that feeling. I always say, look, I'm not shouting. When I become passionate about something, my voice, pitch, tone, volume starts going up gradually. The more you bring in your own arguments, the more my anxiety and my the pressure in me goes up, the more my voice goes up, until the point where now we're in a shouting match. All right. So it takes, something extra, something external to get you to actually, back off and calm down and ask, okay, so how am I being affected? What assumptions is running my mind at this point? Think about possible reasons and evidence. Okay, it's important to focus on evidence. Sometimes, the moment you're able to clarify situation and challenge assumptions, you're now dissecting situations, you're now seeing where your own biases and stereotypes are beginning to skew your judgments. You can now begin to look for constructive evidence. And you can now interpret those evidence based on facts, biases removed. This is very difficult. It's not something that one would say when you train yourself overnight, the next day, you are now a neutral judge. You now see things very clearly. No, we will all still struggle with this over time, okay? And then ask more about the original question. Ask more questions. Somebody has told you ABC, ask for more, get more information. You can't get too much information when it comes to solving a problem. All right, so we said we'll start by defining the present state. How do you define the present state? And then the desired state, so that you can have a clear gap that you want to work on. Write a statement. Statement of the correct state, statement of the desired state. And in that statement, make sure you have details, an outline that breaks it down using different categories of assessments. Then create any, assessment. We'll come up with, let's look at our processes, let's look at our people, let's look at our policies. You can come up with all kinds of categories of assessments. Ensure that it does not contain causes when you're writing this. You're not trying to get to the end. You're still trying to find a solution. Okay, does not contain solutions. Causes and solutions are things you are working towards. So your breakdown is just going to be neutral. These are the issues we are dealing with. Okay. Besides different words, replace a word in the statement. See how that impacts statements. Remove opinionated words. All the I believe and I feel. Try and remove them. Draw a picture of the problem. Try to visualize what that issue is as part of your solution. What questions help to identify the problem? Where questions help to locate the problem? When questions help to discover the timing? and you want to get a sense of the magnitude of the problem as well. You ask more questions to find out how big the issues are. So while writing the problem statement, there have to be specific details about the problem, the scope of the problem, any mention of possible causes, any potential solutions. These are all parts of writing the problem statement. You are asking questions to get information. And don't be afraid to start getting ideas that are tending towards giving you possible solutions. Then the next step is to have a brainstorming session. Most problems cannot be solved by one person. It's possible to have a quiet time, sit down, go through this process, write all these questions, just look at it again, come up with a problem statement, write down what your desired situation should be, and so on and so forth, and come up with a solution. But some problems can become complex. Okay. Winston Churchill said, "No idea is so outlandish that it should not be considered with a searching, but at the same time, steady eye." Okay. It's important that we prepare, for creativity. We want to remove some of the mental blocks to productivity. That's what brainstorming really does. It helps you to just throw things out as much as possible, so you can get, solutions that are beyond what your normal thinking would produce. Okay. So what are the mental blocks that you need to deal with? Emotions, anger, fear, love, hate, all kinds of sentiments. They are the most difficult to catch while trying to do any form of analysis. We deal with these emotions. They are almost part of us. They are natural reaction to stimuli around us. When we see things, when we hear things, when we observe things, we are naturally wired to be emotional. Very few people have mastered the art of bottling and managing their emotions. Okay, but that's what this critical problem solving calls for. We need to be able to manage their emotions. We need to be able to watch out for distractions. Sometimes, and this is very interesting, you might even have someone you're trying to gather information from trying to spook you with distractions, just, either digressing, deviating, or spicing up the story with deliberate distractions. Sometimes it's the environmental factors you can't get rid of, your phones and all the pop-ups, and all the mood swings that come from, watching different type of content, absorbing different kind of content at different times. Okay, so when you are in a problem-solving mode, you want to remove distractions so that you're not affected. Then assumptions, not the sensitive about assumptions. All of those things that the lens with which we look at things, the stereotypes we form in our minds, our personal biases naturally, and the things that have been imposed on us through environmental, cultural, ethnic programming that we deal with. And then the culture. Culture is also a mental block. You find yourself under obligation to respect, for example, an elder becoming superior to the facts you are trying to gather and the analysis you need to make. So sometimes you might not encounter the facts, but you can't deal with it anymore because of the cultural mental block that puts you in a position where you are expected to act in a certain way, even in the face of facts that are clear to you. That can be an issue. And then communication difficulty is also a mental block. I stutter, I'm not a good talker or anything. I could just, because of that, pull myself back and not move on with the situation. Get people who just, because of communication difficulties, bring in the emotion of anger, and then they do withdrawal, and the matter ends there because they're not ready to move on with it. How do you remove this mental block? Attitude adjustments. Emotional blocks, just try to put a freeze on your emotion consciously. Encourage creativity. Think outside the box, try things that are new. Use imagination and feelings, and then break the rules. There are these It's very cultural mental blocks. There are these rules that just hold you down. You can't be objective because of certain cultural blocks you have to deal with. Break the rules when you have to solve a problem. Get down to the bottom of that issue. And even if you have to apologize, it's fine, but deal with the issue at hand. Then you have to stimulate creativity, change your perspective. Sometimes you need to go outside, have different experiences. Breathing is a very good exercise for helping you, calm yourself down and be able to think. Meditation is also very helpful. Breathing and meditation tend to go together because, breathing in a controlled depth and consciously thinking a certain thought that can put you in a frame of mind to either be neutral, to be removed from situation, to be less emotional or otherwise, can be very helpful at this time. And then if you are good at journaling, having a personal journal, just putting down notes and looking at those notes. People who know how to write, diaries and stuff, they tend to look back at it and it helps them to, look at it again. And sometimes you just laugh. I look at my journal of years ago and I look at them, I just laugh and say, oh, so that was who I was then, for example. If I met certain situations now and I think about who I was when I wrote certain things down in the past, I see how I have, advanced and grown personally, emotionally, and psychologically. Generating solutions. Important to generate as many solutions as possible for analyzing solutions or trying to implement them. There are many different methods for generating solutions. Okay, so let's talk about generating solutions. As many as possible. Defer judgment. There's no good or bad solution at this point. Okay, even the widest ideas are included. And then you pick it back again. Go back, to previous ideas, and then begin to rationalize the ideas again to get to a point. And then you can begin to work on how to instill or distill what you have taught into paper using tools like brainwriting and mind mapping, where you list ideas, you use the squares approach for brainwriting, you use a single idea for mind mapping by the center of it, and then you draw out sketches to solve ideas on all sides, diagrams that can help you to just break down your thoughts. An example is what you are seeing in Docker diagram. It's more like a mind mapping tool as well. You can write things on different directions and you break them down further, in a graphical approach to give you greater depth of what you are trying to cover. Find a good solution and become attached to it. Solution may become your next problem, right? So we're looking at how to consider which one would be your best solution at the end of your analysis, okay? All right, so you can use different tools. There will not be enough time in today's lunch hour to look at all the tools, but one of them is the morphological matrix, where you look at a cross between safety, timeliness, pedestrians, drivers, just taking an issue here, and then you try to break it down to see how one side of the issue affects another, like in the matrix. You can put whatever you are considering in the both matrix and write down what the intersections are between both of them as your way of using the morphological matrix. 6 thinking hats. There's this talk about the 6 thinking hats. Maybe I'll take another session next week to talk about some of these tools because of time for today. So let's look forward to it. The blink method, the information overload, limited information can work, unconscious thoughts, and then we'll go into analyzing solutions. So those key methods, I would like to talk about them in greater depth in next week's session. There are even a few more tools I will introduce to it, okay? And we'll wrap up this session. Okay. So let's say we have done lesson 1 of creative problem solving today. I'd like to wrap up by saying the words from the wise. measure of success is not whether you have a tough problem to deal with, but whether it's the same problem you had last year. What John Foster is saying here is, if you dealt with a problem before and you're having the same problem again, it means you did not use creative problem solving approach the first time. Okay, your problems should not repeat themselves over and over and over on you. If you use a creative problem solving approach, it ends with a way to prevent that problem from happening again or happening frequently. Okay, and because it says problems are only opportunities in workflows. See problems as something that's bad, it will not make progress. The opportunities, see them as opportunities, and you will definitely grow. Albert Einstein, the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. If you have dissected the issue you are trying to solve, and you realize that this is the state of mind and who you were at the time those problems were created, and you identify your role in those problems, you need to move or elevate your thinking. There has to be a paradigm shift for you to solve the problem. Otherwise, you will be digging yourself into further problems. Okay. Okay, so that's what we're going to take today. So just look out for next week's continuation of this same topic, creative problem solving part 2. I hope the team is taking notes to put that in the campaign that goes out for this session. All right, so let's hear your questions, everyone. You can put it on the chat on the Teams. You can put it on the chat in the Max-Migold training WhatsApp group. You can put it in any of the platforms where you're watching from, if you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and the team monitoring that platform will put the question in any of these 2 places where I will be able to respond to your answers. And if you are not on our Max-Migold training, facility management training group, the team will put on the link in the chat. I think it's already there on these teams. Please put it in the other platforms as well, for those who are on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter, to be able to join us where we do a daily conversation. On these other platforms, we will have these interactions once a week, but on the WhatsApp platform, we have these interactions on a daily basis. Opportunities are shared there on a daily basis. And we look forward to you being there so you can benefit from these opportunities. Okay, I've just checked the WhatsApp group. There's no question there. And on the Teams platform, to Teams chats, we have Q&A and we have chats. You can put it on the chat or the Q&A if you have. Okay, so looks like there are no questions. So thank you very much. We will come again to you on this same part 2 of this topic next week, and I hope we all have a great week going into the weekend. Thank you so much and have a nice day. Bye.